Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not a Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Lucifer, the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, as well as the season premiere of iZombie. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the timer to start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I have to say about this week's episode of Lucifer, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow and or the season premiere of iZombie. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the latest episode of Lucifer. Another great episode. I love that basically the entirety of this episode is built around the whole aspect of Lucifer not having the inspiration of how to help out with the whole Cain situation, like him running hell, knowing all about torture and stuff like that. He went to the number one torturer, Maze, nothing. Every idea he's had, it doesn't amount to anything because Cain's thought of it before. So it's like, how do I help him out? So now he's in a rut, and it also deals with the case because you have this author, I always mess up saying that word, named Kathleen, who wrote like these science fiction books they're science fiction books called 3001. Basically end up finding out that basically they're based on people she knew from high school, because she made it kind of like this like high school scandalous drama and just like gossipy and stuff like that, with a kind of like a science fictional twist to it and stuff like that. But nevertheless, she was murdered, but Lucifer thinks if he can take this as an opportunity, like find out how she got over her writer's block, because there's like 5-year period in between. And I'm wondering, is this supposed to be a reference to the Game of Thrones books? Because that's kind of like the whole thing with George R. Martin, like the whole like, the space in between the different books and stuff like that with the TV show, that whole situation. I wonder if that's supposed to be a reference to that. But nevertheless, because what I liked about this, it's also we saw a little bit of a role reversal, because you have usually it being Lucifer, the one who's so like, not focused on the case and everything, kind of getting distracted. In this case, it ended up being Chloe, because she got invested. She stayed up all night reading the books. And then when she get like, because her and Lucifer going undercover, and it's like, oh my God, they're here, they're there. It's like, oh my God, look at all of them. They're here. They're all together. And then Lucifer had to be like, really? Yeah, they're all here. And potentially one of them is a killer. She's like, right. And it's like, it's so interesting, because this was Chloe as herself acting like that. That wasn't her pretending to be Lucifer or something. Like, she got so invested in this, mainly because of her upbringing. Like, Chloe never really had much of a childhood, so she even admits it later on. It was like, this is her way of kind of getting into it. But even she's like, oh yeah, kind of doing a gossipy thing. I was like, oh my God, but this and this and this and that, but from the books and everything, while Lucifer was off trying to actually get some work done, which is so interesting. Even to the point, it's like, literally, I'm doing all the work here. I'm supposed to be one who messes around, but look at you. You're so caught up in all of this. Because even like when some of the stuff is happening between the characters, like, oh, you cheated on me 15 years ago. I'm sorry. I thought because you cheated on me. It's like, no, I never would have cheated on you. You see her just on the sidelines going, oh, like making faces because she's so invested in this story. And I just love that being an aspect and everything. It's actually quite sad, like the resolution to that case, because it's like, oh yeah, her editor killed her because basically she talked to Todd, who is the actor, I believe by the actor who played JT in Beauty and the Beast. But nevertheless, like, because she gave it a different ending, because like the series had been built around the fact is that whole like scandalous and like gossipy nature, basically once again taking the lives and the stuff that the people that she knew in high school were going through and using it in her story like that. It's almost kind of like a petty thing, but I think like her mindset had changed, because it was more like making it a very closed book where everything was grounded and everything was peaceful. There was no more drama. There was no more scandal. It's just kind of like everyone kind of understanding each other for the first time. There being no disputes and stuff like that, and having a harmonious ending, which the editor didn't like, because it's like, no, the whole series is built around that drama, and you get rid of it, no one's into it anymore. Drama sells, so it's that type of situation. It's kind of sad that that's what was kind of the end of this whole situation. So I mean, it's really sad too, because for Lucifer, because multiple times throughout the episode being like, oh yeah, we got to catch, go track down that book. You mean the killer, right? Killer. It's okay. I know you're about to say book. It's like, okay. Even getting ideas from Dan being like, oh, use improv. It's like, how do I do that? It's like, yes, and what? It's like, no, you just do that. He's like, okay, yes, and yes. It's like, it's such an idiotic thing, trying to learn from everyone. And I just love that being a thing. But ultimately, it actually ends up being Chloe who ends up giving him the answer he seeks. Because for Chloe, she, once again, like I said, filling that void of like, oh, I never had this when I was growing up. But it's like, I don't need to be that party one. I don't need to be the party animal, like live it up like that. It's like, no, this is who I am. I'm the responsible one. It is kind of sad because she was supposed to like, go out like partying with Ella at like a neon party, but like she kind of had a bill and everything. They look super cute with those wigs and everything. But, it's just for her, Chloe's like, I am the responsible one. I mean, being a mom and everything, too. So that adds, on top of being a cop, you're also a mom and everything. So that adds an element to that, like responsibility as well. But it's like, oh, that's me. I don't want to be anyone else because being the responsible person is always who I've been. And, that's who I continue to be. Lucifer does a sweet thing of throwing her a prom. And I was like, oh, that's so adorable. But she ultimately gives him the idea of like, oh yeah, you can't rewrite history. And then Lucifer's like, oh, but I can't. So that's his plan for Cain. If he can go back and undo the thing that led to this in the first place, which was Cain killing Abel, him getting branded. So not unless he's talking about going back and stopping Amenadiel from ever giving him a brand, I'd assume is like go back in time and stop him, Cain from killing Abel. I'm curious to see, will he tell Cain about this ahead of time or not? Because the fact of the matter is, we don't know, like, once again, time travel is not something you mess with, especially on a cosmic level like that. Because that's a huge thing. You don't know what the domino effects could be for that, like, how things will play out. I mean, it's also interesting because that means Lucifer has that power. I mean, to be fair, like, we've never really seen him go full out when it comes to his powers. We've never seen, like, what he can fully do as Lucifer. Because it's just never come up. I don't think he's ever been in a situation where he's needed to use his full power. I mean, it makes you wonder, has even Amenadiel ever used his full power? I mean, I would assume like the whole like freezing time thing is kind of part of that full power. But I mean, that's just kind of his specialty thing. So I don't know if that really counts or not, So I don't know, like, can he do it himself or does he need something specific to do that? That is a question. But once, like I said, the whole conversation about time travel, what about the domino effects? It might be a situation where Lucifer comes back and things are completely different, or it might be a situation of, when it comes to time travel, that no matter what you do, things will always play out this way. So even when Lucifer goes and tries to change things, that ultimately it's like, oh yeah, Cain still ended up killing his brother and ended up eventually getting branded. Like I said, it depends on like at what point Lucifer's going back. I'd assume it's that, but like I said, it could easily just be him going back to try and stop Amenadiel from giving Cain to Mark. But then again, it's like, well, what if he stops Amenadiel? What happens then? Like, what will that do for later on, I mean, especially because Cain's been around a long time, influencing different people's lives, being the person that he was. Like, if you change that, so much of that world changes too, I feel like, because he's connected to so many people over the years and centuries he's been alive, So it's something to think about. But we'll see. I'm very interested to see how they handle the whole situation. It's kind of interesting because this episode was kind of all about relationships. Because there's this little bit of a moment where Dan's talking. He's like, yeah, Charlotte, I mean, Miss Richards, and you see like Charlotte kind of messing with her hair, kind of adjusting it, kind of like trying to be like, okay, no one noticed that. It's like, I noticed it. Like, that was just, it was like a little tiny thing, but it's like, oh, there's a lot more intimacy there. Like, just the fact that you were nervous like that makes me go, I mean, last time we saw you just went on a date. It's like, is it because you've had sex too, and it's just kind of weird and awkward to be on a first name basis? I guess because it's like, oh, to keep that professional angle, whether it is they've had sex or whether they've just like been on a date, it's still that aspect of like, well, we got to keep up appearances and stuff like that. So that was just kind of a neat thing. And then obviously another angle of things is the whole situation with Maze. It's like, oh, like they've lied to me. Okay, I'll deal with them. Because at the same time, you have Amenadiel and Linda feeling so bad about it and everything. Especially Linda, she's like, we should tell Maze. It's like, I feel so guilty. And she's like, are we cowards? And then like, you have Amenadiel be like, yeah, we're cowards because it's Maze. It's like, we all know how Maze would react. She's literally a demon that loves to torture people. Hence, she takes that in action this episode because she sets Linda up on a blind date. It turns out to be a double date because it's like, oh, Linda's there with Todd, because I love how Maze incorporated the case into like her whole little torture session. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be keeping Todd busy anyway. Look, here you are. And then, being on a double date with Amenadiel filling on him and like licking his face and everything, and it bothering Linda. So I didn't expect everything to kind of come out the way it did. I thought Linda was, I mean, because Linda had her ideas like, oh, maybe she knows, well, maybe she doesn't. So I thought Linda was going to play into it a little bit more, because obviously she really wasn't digging Todd, but I thought that was kind of like something she was like playing into it a little bit more, kind of make, kind of play the game back at Maze, but it didn't really turn out like that. Linda just ended up confessing. And then it's like, well, we knew you'd overreact. And Maze is like, I don't overreact. Like I said, and that's kind of a cute thing about Maze, even though she pretends like I said, like she doesn't get bothered by things, she does. Like when she feels left out, like her feelings are hurt, which I'm sure she wouldn't admit it. She wouldn't like, no, like I don't have feelings. I'm a demon. It's like you probably have like one of the biggest hearts of anyone in this show. You were such a caring person, whether you really want to realize it or not. I mean, like look at your relationship with Trixie. Look at your relationship with Linda and Chloe. What you did for Ella last episode, it's like you can't tell. You know, she's a very caring person when the time comes down to it, and it's just she's hurt. And it's just, I mean, to be fair, she kind of told Linda ahead of time. It's like, yeah, you and Amenadel being together would just kind of bother me. Like, she opens up, but she doesn't really tell you that, it's just like, she probably wouldn't admit, like, it made her jealous because, like, I don't want you and my ex getting together. Like, and well, exactly why. Not just that it bothers me. It's like, no, I don't know. And even Linda kind of admits later on, is like, it's kind of dickish of me doing that because I knew it would hurt her, but I did anyway because I just wanted to be with you that much. But for Linda, I also appreciate her point of being like, the fact of the matter is, I might be selfish, but I have the right to be selfish because what do I do all day? I listen to your problems. Like, for one, that's coming as a therapist, but also as a therapist to this whole like celestial situation she's smack dab in the middle of. Let's not forget what that celestial situation caused her and everything is still kind of dealing with that, which she's on her way of resolving that with the whole Charlotte situation. But nevertheless, it is kind of like, I have the right to be selfish. I want to do something for me, and being with Amenadel makes me happy. But for Maze, it's like, but you're my friend. That's the real kick in the teeth. Would things have been better if she had told him if Linda and Amenadel had told her up front? Maybe. Like, Maze probably would have been bothered by it, but I think she would have understood if you had been like, hey, like, you're my friend, so, or maybe, Linda might have been more like, you know what? I mean, ultimately what Linda did this episode, which was break it off, because it's like, I don't want to be that friend. I don't want to be that type of person who hurts my friend just because of me being selfish. Like, I like what we have here. I do care for you, Amenadel, but I'm not going to do that to my friend. I'm not going to be that person. And even Amenadel, because even like Maze kind of threw in his face, it's like, oh, is this God's plan for you to have sex with to be intimate with a human and stuff like that? Is that what God's plan is? Because, that's Amenadel's thing now, being like, oh, I'm on God's I am, he's back on believing like, oh, everything's part of God's plan, his father's plan. And even he's probably thinking to himself like, yeah, this isn't who I'm supposed to be. That he kind of got swept up in his own desires, which I guess maybe adds a little bit of irony to it and stuff like that. Desire being Lucifer's thing and everything and Amenadel. But I'm curious to see what goes forward with their situations, especially including Maze. Will she forgive them or not? Like, it might be a situation of, even when it's all said and done, she might not forgive Linda because it's like, you still lied to me and went behind my back. Because it wasn't just for a little while. It's like, you lied to my face for weeks. Like I said, if they'd told her the truth, maybe things could be different. Like I said, Maze would still be pissed and everything, but I'm sure she would have probably, is that situation of like, is it better to tell the truth even though it's going to hurt someone, or is it better to keep a lie? Because, that hurt's just going to build up over time. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what Maze is ultimately going to do. And I also appreciate this episode at the beginning. I didn't even talk about it. Was the whole aspect of like the whole dream that Lucifer had about his wings, and he's telling it to Linda about like Chloe falling and then him not being able to catch her. And he's like, oh yeah, like all that, my dad could take from me, Lux, he took my demon face, gave me these wings. And it's like, he could take more. He's like, you could take Chloe. He's like, well, yeah, that's part of it, but that's not what this is about me. But it's like, no, it is obviously like everything. It's about Chloe. Once again, Lucifer not really willing to admit how he feels, because once again, it's part of that whole realm of things where he feels like everything between him and Chloe is fabricated. So it's like, I can't open up my feelings to her, like, be honest, like, because Lucifer, that's his shtick. Is the fact is that he kind of hides away behind all that charisma and, sexual innuendos and stuff like that, just to kind of hide how he really feels. Okay, it's not really hiding because that's just a part of him anyway, but also just, just like Maze, he kind of wears his heart on his sleeves too, so I am wondering, is that going to be foreshadowing some things? Because I was wondering if that's what the ending was going to be like of the episode, like he's dancing with her and then his wings pop out. I thought that was going to be the thing, but it's like, No, turned out not to be the case. I thought it was going to end on a cliffhanger. Like, oh my God, she finds out like about Lucifer that way. But at the same time, I was like, Lucifer could try and tell her the truth by showing its wings. Even though that's such an interesting thing. And it's something I don't know if I really brought that up before. It's like, you're so willing to show Chloe your devil face when the time came for it. Obviously, it took you a while, but eventually you wanted to, but you no longer could. But it's like, why won't you show her your wings? You want to show her who you really are. But I guess for him, it's like, the whole thing, like I've talked about before, like the whole aspect of the show is also about Lucifer's identity. And it's like, without my devil face, I'm not who I am, because he feels like his dad stole who he is. It's like, this is who I've been and who I am. But I mean, that's the aspect though of it, kind of like who you are constantly changes throughout your life. And he's easily not the same person that he was all those years ago. So, but this is the person that he is. This is the person he's accepted himself as. Like, even though he rejects the whole aspect of like being Lucifer, the evil guy, like he still embraces that as his identity, which is kind of sad in a way, because it's like, oh, your dad punished you, and you wear that quote unquote shame as a badge of honor. Just, it's kind of a middle finger to his dad, but I don't know, it's actually sad when you really break it down like that. The deep-seated family issues of that family. But like I said, I don't know. I don't know why I never really thought about that before. It's like, you haven't shown her your wings. That could prove like, oh yeah, what I say is the truth. Like, you could be more open with Chloe, but it's like, you don't want her to see you like that, because I think maybe it just makes Lucifer think of who he was back then too. It's like, I don't want to be like the person I was when I was an angel. This is who I am with my devil face and all. That's who I've been, and that's who I've always been. It's the truest me. But, I think it might be a situation where Chloe, it's like, it doesn't matter, devil face or angel wings, you're still the partner I've always had throughout this situation, the person I've been closest to. So, I don't know, it might be something, mushy like that. But ultimately, we will just have to wait and see. Like I said, I'm very curious to see how this whole time travel thing works out. And we'll just have to wait till the next episode to see how it in fact all plays out. And now moving on to this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow, another great episode. In this episode, we deal with pirates. And if you don't know, pirates are kind of like one of my favorite things. I think I've always kind of liked pirates, but I feel like One Piece is like the main reason why I like pirates as much as I do. But nevertheless, I love Blackbeard in this, because he just kind of made Blackbeard kind of a scoundrel coward, because he's got the greatest badass pirate ever, and it's just like, he's like, yeah, I made a promise I'd never go back to the island, so I'm gonna keep that promise and I'm gonna go. It's like, oh, you man, you're gonna turn against me and follow her as captain? Okay, I'll help you dig up the treasure and everything. It's just like everything he does. I could have sworn, maybe this is just me, I felt like he stole something from Amaya at the end of the episode. That's not the case, but like being closer and everything, I thought he snatched something from her really quickly before he went back. But nevertheless, I just love that this is like a big Amaya episode in the sense of like, because Mick is trying to get her to kind of cut loose a little bit, because she's so worried about everything. She's like, I want to change things for Kawasa, but if I do that, maybe I'll end up inadvertently changing things for Mari. Also, really quickly, let me interject by the fact of the matter is that it's constantly reminding me, you haven't seen Vixen. It's kind of what this keeps telling me, because they bring up the fact is that the fire emblem was actually, Mari has it. Actually, her boyfriend is the one that was studying it, because the fire totem is, did I say emblem totem is actually broken, which is probably something that's popped up in Vixen, but because I still yet to watch Vixen, it still eludes me. I need to change it. I need to take time. I just haven't taken the time to watch it. I need to change that so badly. But nevertheless, but at the same time, it's the whole situation. It's like, oh, if I change things with Mari, then that means, if I change things for Kawasa, who's to say I don't change things for Mari? Mari does so much good as Vixen, so. But then there's also like the fact of the matter is, what about her own fate? It's like when everything's said and done, like she's eventually going to have to leave Nate, go back home, marry someone else, have a daughter who will eventually have Mari and Kawasa, which I've been saying this since like, I'm pretty sure last season. It was like, we all know that Nate's going to end up being like their grandfather. Like it has to be like, either it's going to be a situation of Amaya goes back to her village without ever telling Nate the truth about him being, a dad and eventually grandfather, which is going to be interesting to see what he ultimately does when it's all said and done. Would it be too much for him to meet up with his granddaughter, even though there's this huge age difference? Because I'm like, oh yeah, technically I'm your grandfather, even though I don't look like I'm your grandfather, type of thing, or what's going on. I'm curious to see how this whole like situation goes, because this is also definitely going to be affecting Vixen, dude. Because it's like whatever befalls like Nate, Namaya, and Kuwasa is all going to affect Vixen. But I mean, the stories are separated, but at the same time they are connected. So. Because the sad thing is, we know what happens to, like, Amaya. I mean, well, the fact is, we don't know. We know her village got burned, but I think it talked about it being the fact that she died trying to protect it, I think. But, I mean, I don't know. It's something we'll just kind of have to wait to see everything going forward. What really took me by surprise is the fact is that Amaya lost her totem. Is like, Damien Dark took it. And I love it. And he's like, yeah, Admiral. And then you have Amaya being like, oh, Admiral, and he's like, I know, I'm so handsome. I love you, David Darker. Neil McDonough does such an amazing job. But nevertheless, but what really made me love everything in this episode, which once again we're kind of building relationships in this show, like, because I think wasn't it last season they actually kind of built up like even from the beginning, like there's always been a little bit of a thing between like Mick and Amaya, like a friendship, like. That was something that was kind of built up last season, and you're kind of playing with that a little bit more because he's the one that kind of teaching her to kind of go back a little bit, because it's like, oh, he's the one that spreads it up. It's like, oh, look at the great pirate queen Jiwei, and it's like blowing her up to be this badass, which she was, even without her totem, got dual swords up there taking people down and everything, and it's like, yo, looking dope, dude. Because I trip, I love me some sword fights, so. Kind of showing you just even without like her totem, that Amaya is still not to be like trifled with, that she can kick serious ass when the time comes. But the thing I was going to get to is like, I love that while this is all happening, where's Sarah? Because I was kind of hoping the entire episode would be like Sarah's at her date, and then the team comes back and is like, oh, what happened? Nothing. But it's like, nah, Sarah finds out because her and Ava are on a date looking so cute, and it's like, oh my god, you look great, son, you look great. And then they pull the chairs out for each other and they kind of laugh about it. It's like, no, we're gonna have a normal date and everything, and just the little stories like, Sarah's Peter Pan story, and then Ava's whole story about, like paintball, like, oh, no one wants to play with me anymore because I use someone as a human shield, and just them being so adorable. And then Gary pops up, which I'll kind of get to Gary soon enough, and just their whole date is ruined. I was like, oh, that's so beautifully done. I love it. And then later on, you have Ava being super pissed about it. It's like, you stood me up, jerk. It's like, well, the team even is like, oh, well, there it is. And it's like, I can't be normal. She's like, I don't want you to be normal. And then you have Sarah being like, wait, you don't? It's like, no. And then they start making it argue. I was like, oh, you're so adorable. Because the fact of the matter is, neither one of them can pretend to be normal, because they're like top tier badasses, and it's like everything that they've been through it. I even love the fact that Ava was like, because Sarah's talking about everything, and it's like, oh, why are you acting like you know everything? It's like, okay, so I might have looked at your files. You were a wanted criminal at the time, so it's kind of like, I kind of know everything there is to know about you. So I thought that was kind of neat. But and it seems like she might be staying on a ship for a while too, because I was like, oh, you got a room here? It's like, oh, we'll find you one. I'm like, what? That's cool. It'd be kind of nice if she joined the Legends permanently. I don't know, like, it's this weird, it's a weird thing to say, but like, Sarah's been happy, but it's like, I feel like this is the first time we've seen Sarah like happy, Like, I feel like she hasn't been like this in a long time. I mean, to be fair, dealing with everything she's been dealing with, like Laurel, trying to fix time and everything, losing people, like, she needed a win, so, and that, and speaking of the Earth Totem works in a very interesting way. It seems like it controls life to a certain extent. Like, the way Amaya is basically saying is, like, basically the totems amplify what's already there for you. So that was kind of interesting, like, because with Annie, it's like she suffered a bullet wound to the head, but she got up. Like, I'm curious, like, why she resurrected from that one. And like when she resurrected, the wound healed, but then like Damien Dark snapped her neck with his magic, and that killed her. So was it because it was magic that killed her, the reason why she stayed dead, or is it a situation of it takes a while for the totem to kind of kick in? So I mean, it seems like immediately when seeing her do what she's doing, it's like immediately the first thing that comes to my head is like kind of poison ivy a little bit with just the whole plants and everything. But I'm curious, like, how that whole thing works, because it's like it's cursed and everything, but I guess it's more so for the fact is that she's not the right person to wield it. The moment the right person touches it and wields it, then it's all bets are off. But then that does beg the question, like, is that something specific to the earth? But I guess, because earth can be kind of associated with healing because, plants can be ground up into medicine and stuff like that. So maybe it's something like that. But the basic question, like, who's the true bearer of, like, the earth one? Because I wonder, could Amaya use it, or would it kind of do the same thing to her or not? Like, will they have to find someone to, like, hey, you need to wield this? Hey, what if it turns out to be Ava? I mean, you don't know. Hell, for all we know, like, maybe even Sarah might even be one, like, the bearers. Like, maybe she's fire, because there is still, like, sixth one that we don't know about. But maybe, I don't know, it seems like they might be setting that type of thing up. I mean, ultimately, we kind of have to wait and see, like, how that all plays out. I mean, I'd assume that might have something to do with Amaya's daughter. I mean, like I said, with Nate most likely being the dad in that situation. Like, if he turns out Nate's not the dad, I'll be really shocked. Because, like I said, since season 2, I'm like, it's totally got to be Nate. Like, time travel and everything. Which, I don't know whether that's... I mean, Amaya her and Nate kind of do their business at the end. But it's like, I don't know. It's more so like, And it was kind of an interesting thing hearing from her, being like, because basically she felt free for the first time. Because that totem has always been kind of like her compass, but at the same time, it's always been her chain as well. Because it's always like, oh, this is the path you have to go down. This is your destiny. It's always been a compass. But now that she doesn't have it, she doesn't feel that weight. But she's able to make that choice. She doesn't feel like she's bound by destiny as much, that she can do what she wants. So I'm more so the whole Nate situation is probably like, no matter who I'm supposed to be with, I'm gonna, like, what what Mick told her, live for the now, live for the moment rather than for tomorrow. That's kind of the pirate way. So maybe that's what she was thinking, not realizing that, once again, it's that whole situation of like, you don't even realize it, but you're playing into Destiny's hand. So it makes you wonder, like, is there such thing as free will? Because even your free will ultimately ends you leading down the path that you're always meant to lead down, So that's something to think about. But what I thought was really interesting with Ray, when he used that nanite gun on Nora and it's killing her, and he actually felt guilty about it. You could tell, like, immediately, which is something I recently found out, and I thought was kind of interesting. The actress who plays Nora, Courtney Ford, her and Brandon Routh, the actor who plays Ray, are married. So it's like, that's so interesting. That's gotta be so weird to think about. It's just so interesting how that worked out like that. I'm like, oh, cool. So the moment he started kind of looking sad and everything, I was like, oh, are they playing that up even more so? Because it's like, oh, that's your wife. You have to pretend like you're quote unquote killing and stuff like that. That's kind of sad. But for him, it's also, but I figured, like, obviously that's outside context, but within the story context, it's like, no, like, him and Zari spent time with her. They saw the innocent little girl she was, and that she was kind of swept up in all this darkness because of who her dad is, because of the whole Mala situation. She never had a chance. Like, she was always kind of doomed to face this, but even, like, Ray's not going to give up. That's why he felt so guilty about it, because it's like, there's still a chance. Look at you, Nick. Look at him and Snart. They turned it around. They were villains. In particular with Mick's case of, like, who he was in the beginning, compare that to who he is now. Very different persons. Like, if you can change and you're a much better person now, maybe Nora can too. So he wanted to give her a second chance. Sadly, that ended up with him kind of almost being killed by her. But, like, obviously Ray's going to be used as bait to draw the team out. I am curious though. Like, I think it seemed like it was just obviously her messing with Ray, but there was that instant of her making it seem like, oh yeah, like, there was something there. So maybe that little spark of that little girl that's still there, or maybe they could do something about her past, go back in time and get to Nora again, I mean, they'd have to track her down in the past to find her, and, like, maybe they could get to her when she's younger before she's completely swept up in this world and swept up in all of this, being the person that the bad guy that she is. So ultimately we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, what happens to Ray with all of this, And then also the other side story being the whole situation with Wally and Rip. And Rip, I was like, the moment Rip pulled out a drink, I was like, he's not pulling a Professor Stein, is he? Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referencing back how Stein got Jax on the ship in the first place was by drugging him. It's like, oh my God, don't tell me you're going to force Wally to come with. It's like, no. They're drinking buddies, they're drinking and everything. And I love later on when Wally's like, yeah, I had a hangover for 3 minutes. And it's like, oh, I hate speedsters and their damn fast metabolism. But just the fact is they hung out, and even Wally hearing everything that Rip has done is like, wow, you're kind of a douche. But it's not like he's necessarily trying to bring Wally into this whole situation the same way. It's like he's actually trying to apologize to both his prodigies, that being both, the people he kind of mentored over, that being Ava and Sarah, because he screwed them both over. He lied to Sarah, and in Ava's case, it's like, I got a lot of good agents killed. So he's trying to make it up to them. So that's why he's working with Wally. They went back to 1992, Tokyo, singing. God, I love it. Also, the fact is they messed with Gary. They took his time thing and they pantsed him. And it's like, and then you have Gary being like, not again. It's like, I love that you are the biggest butt of the joke for this season, Gary. I think I even forgot to talk about it last episode. Just the whole fact of the matter is, it's like, oh, why'd you throw Gary in there? Oh, because it's funny. Like, even Gideon's in on a joke. Side note, I love that Gideon ratted them out immediately. So it's like, I'm here to tell you, like, basically they went off they kind of went off doing something stupid again. So I love that Gideon's kind of trying to be the responsible one. And it's just, but when it's all said and done, you have Rip back with his coat and everything. Him and Wally, it's like, it's like, you fit, because, Wally feels like he doesn't fit amongst the team because he's not as smart as everyone else, because he doesn't, know where he stands, and everywhere, with Team Flash and everything. He feels like he doesn't really have a place. And it's like, maybe you have a place somewhere else. And I'm like, whoa, is Rip's going to take him to the Legends, and he's most likely going to join him for a little while, which I'm like, whoa, which I'm trying to remember. When's the last time Wally popped? Because Wally disappeared, because they referenced it at the beginning of the episode when he leaves to go off on his own, and then he comes back later on. Wasn't that before the, wasn't that before the crossover? And then, did he subsequently pop up after the crossover? I don't remember. I think he might have. I don't remember. Because, Wally just, like I said, it kind of plays into the fact is that I'm sure it's because Wally, the actor who plays Wally, is also off doing other stuff. But I guess at the same time, it's like, because he's also off doing his own thing in Legends, so he's probably going, it's like, oh yeah, where have you been? I've been kind of time traveling or whatever, there's probably something they'll play with, for The Flash. So maybe that's even more reason why they did the whole situation with changing the time for Legends, because it's because of Wally's story, and just maybe there's stuff coming up with him on the Flash that's kind of like, okay, we need to showcase Wally's story and kind of tell people what he's been up to, what he's doing. They might make a slight reference to it in the Flash without probably going too much into it, but I'm very interested. I brought that up last episode. I thought I remembered hearing that Wally was going to join the Legends or whatever, which I'm super psyched about, because that's something I brought up. I think I talked about that in season 1, or at least that was kind of the thought process some people also had. What if they threw in new superheroes every season or something like that? Which they kind of have. Obviously you had the Hulks in season 1, season 2 introduced Maya and Nate. And obviously this season, you had Firestorm situation. So if you add in, Wally joining it too is going to be the first speedster on our side. So it's just a lot of interesting things. I'm curious to see where this all takes us in the next episode. And now moving on to the season premiere of iZombie, a fantastic season premiere. I am already in love with what they've been doing. They've already started with this one episode, they've set the tone for the rest of the season. Basically giving us a rundown of basically what the world has become. Basically it's been 3 months since season 3's finale. A huge wall is up separating Seattle from the rest of the world. Basically all the zombie population is kind of kept in Seattle, because all of Seattle, it's kind of what Chase kind of says in the episode, Seattle is kind of like a experiment to see can zombies and humans kind of coexist without there really being too much of an issue. And it's if it works here, then maybe it can be something that zombies can get represented more around the world, which is kind of interesting to me, considering the fact this Fillmore Graves is the military contractors that they are. I would think they'd have a lot more zombies worldwide, but I guess when they moved, I guess they brought everyone with them to Seattle, not less there are still others scattered around, kind of still in hiding. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, obviously, because the biggest focus is Seattle, so that's really, so even if there are any in hiding, they're not going to come out until things with Seattle kind of settle down. So, and it's even a conversation that comes up between the mayor and Peyton, at a dinner. It's like, oh yeah, like basically hundreds of thousands of people left Seattle before the wall went up, but it's like because there are still humans in the city, they won't just bomb the city, so it works out for the zombies. God, there's just so much going on. Because a big question I was wondering about, what would this mean for Liv now that zombies are all out, and especially what she does? It's like she can still do what she does. Because the whole thing is like they're not supposed to take the brains of live people. Well, the fact of the matter is, like, you know, the people that Liv eats brains from are dead. Still, I would think they would kind of smack that against her a little bit, because it's like, well, the fact of the matter is, it's like you're eating live brains where everyone else has to eat tubes. So I thought that would kind of be something, but it's like, no, I guess because she eats those brains in a professional sense. And the way they make the conversation seem like, it seems like, because a conversation came up in the episode about like, oh yeah, visions aren't admissible in court. So it means like other people do that too. Which also begs the question that maybe I doubt any cases that Liv has been connected to are overturned, because it's probably like all the evidence was there, they confessed and everything, so it's not something you have to really worry about. But the fact is that means that there are other people eating brains. And I'm curious like how much of the department is zombies now, because it seems like, you know, because like it looks like Bazio is, it seems like she's running things, and I don't know whether it's like her, Clive, and Liv with the others are like, we're the special zombie unit, because they were the only ones that were in her office at the time, so maybe everyone else is human. I mean, obviously Clive's still human, which also begs the question of what's going on between her and Clive. Like, it seemed like they were good. Obviously they were in a good place at the end when he kind of told her everything in season 2, but it's like her becoming a zombie makes things complicated. Like, obviously things didn't work out with Major and Liv with the whole like human zombie situation, and it's probably just that complication because you can't get intimate, because a zombie can only be with a zombie because, you know, Clive wants to stay human, and I'm sure she's not going to try and force that on Clive. I mean, to be fair, once again, it's been 3 months, so who's to say what kind of went down between them? But it's so interesting that, and I even love it because there's almost like this PC culture for it being like, because you have that guy at the beginning being like, oh yeah, you know, these Fillmore Graves guys, they're not that warm. And he looks and Liv's like, oh, I'm sorry. She's like, it's okay. It's like he's trying to be sensitive because he feels like he's being insensitive saying that. It's like, it's so interesting how you have to walk around on eggshells around certain, on a subject like that. It's just so fascinating to me that it's kind of grown to be that. And I love that the brain that Liv ends up eating, it's like a hardcore sports fan, a Seahawk fan. And then there's that whole situation between her and that dude who's like a 49ers fan, and it's just like mad trash talk between them, shitting on each other's city. It's like, oh, San Francisco, Seattle, it's just like the back and forth, even to the point she kind of goes in zombie mode. It's like, you're kind of raging out. It's like, it's beast mode. And I'm like, whoa. I just, like I said, I'm so excited because of what this set up. But nevertheless, this basically dealt with a guy who was a hating zombie that ends up, which is kind of interesting because you have like Liv eating the brain, and then it's kind of making her kind of hate zombies. Like, oh yeah, the dead, they suck, don't they? And it's like, wow. Sadly, it turns out that the killer was Clint's wife, because he was kind of a douchebag, because he was all about sports, and once, like, the Seahawks were his whole focus, and you kind of stepped out of that spectrum, I hate you, because basically the dude he was working with basically put it that, like, he had a good job, but then it all kind of fell apart because of the whole Seattle situation with zombies, so he was a real big zombie hater. Turns out his son Zorn is a zombie, and it's like, oh, like the wife was forced to choose, like, between her son and her husband, and she's like, he shouldn't have made me choose it, you know, make that choice, and she easily made it. Like, her husband was kind of a piece of crap person, just in general, not even just the whole zombie thing, just a piece of crap, but also it's like, this is your son, which is kind of sad to think about. Like, that's a reality in this world. Like, kids are getting kicked out of their homes because it's like, oh, you're a zombie, get out. And just like, it's like, you get a little taste of it at the end of season 3, but seeing it being a lot more prevalent in this episode of just like the hate, a group known as the Dead Enders, they kind of don't like, that's that's definitely something we're going to be dealing with going forward. Like, I mean, like, I kind of brought that up at the end of the last season, but like, that's definitely the tension between humans and zombies. Obviously, there's those who coexist, but there's always going to be that slight, like, you know, because obviously you have certain characters like Clive as well as like Peyton. It's like they've known about this for a while. They've adjusted, so they don't, you know, they're kind of okay with it because they trust these people that they're around. You know, that includes like Major as well as Liv. It's kind of interesting because it seems like there might be a little bit of an issue between Clive and Major. I mean, to be fair, Fillmore Graves kind of created a situation that led to like Bazio becoming zombie, so I'm sure he holds some like resentment towards Major, even though Major wasn't a part of that. It's like the fact that you're working with the people who did that. Yes, all the traitors were wiped out and everything, but still he blames Fillmore Grace because they're associated with that whole thing. So I think on some level, because he was like, yeah, sure, because you know Major best, so it's like he didn't really want to go to Major for help, you know. So that was kind of something I couldn't help but kind of pick up on. Thought was kind of interesting. Also, the fact of the matter is that zombies are being tagged, their houses are got Z's on it, like for those who are potential zombies. I mean, Liv is currently one of the few zombies that probably just walks around. Like everyone else, like spray tans and everything, but I don't know, that's such an interesting thing. Like, it's never been her thing. Like, she does it once in a while, but that's only when she's going undercover and stuff like that, trying to be more like herself. But it's like, she never spray tans. And even with everything kind of said and being done, I guess, because, you know, she's comfortable for who she is. And she's like, I do a good job. I help people. I'm not going to shy away from who I am, you know? So I'm not going to try and hide. Which, it's a story element that has not come back into the story subsequently since. It's something I brought up, like, oh, potentially something that could come back in season 3. What's the whole family situation? I'm curious what her family would think. I mean, because it would kind of explain everything. It's like, oh, I understand why you didn't do. Like, I don't know. Like, that's still something that's not even mentioned, just because it's kind of like, you know, I guess after everything that went down, her family kind of cut ties. Like I said, when I talked about it at the time, it's like it's a storyline that probably got dropped because, you know, not many people are digging it. But it's still an element I'd be curious to see what would happen going forward. Like, what that would mean. Also, like, Major's, like, mom and everything. What about that? Like, what does everyone's family like think about this whole like zombie situation? You know, is it something to think about? Not less Liv's family was like one of the people that left. Maybe it could be like, well, she's not that brokenhearted about it, and they're already been on the best of terms. It's like, hey, they're somewhere else, they're safe. That's all that matters. I don't know. Then another element to it is Ravi. It seems like his cure has worked to a certain extent. His hair kind of goes a little white. And he does crave brains, but it does seem like it goes away. Like the cure that the prevention he took kind of kicks in after like 72 hours, but he does have a lusting for brains and stuff like that. So he's borderlining zombie. It seems like Ravi's going to be like the beginning of something. Like either, I think eventually at some point, like the zombie's going to take over completely, or maybe it's just he is going to be a hybrid. Because at this point in time, he is kind of a hybrid. So it's kind of interesting. Especially because the person that he's brain he ate was a nudist, and he's standing in front of like everyone naked, which is doubly sucky for Liv. Because let's not forget, she ate what was it? Caddy's brain last season, and she had sex with Ravi, and so every time she closed her eyes, she saw having sex with Ravi, and it was disgusting. And now it's like you have him standing in front of you. It's got to probably trigger that to some extent. But I'm curious to see what that whole situation goes down with his, you know, he's still testing everything out and everything. I wonder, well, yeah, because it seems like everyone knows. Like, I was about to say, does anyone know? It's like, well, of course everyone knows. Because it's like, there's no hiding it anymore. Like, zombies are just out there in the open now. There are new rules that people have to be going by. I mean, because of Fillmore Graves, like certain, like for example, like the mom and the son, like, you know, Clive had the permission to go, oh, let me check your blood pressure to see if you're a zombie or not. So I'm also surprised we haven't seen Justin. I wonder, is he going to make a return this season? Then you also had the whole Blaine situation, which Blaine is trying to continue and build his operation, but he's kind of being shafted a little bit. You know, he's kind of back to being low rank again. It's like, along with going from good to bad, he's always going from upper rank to lower rank. I'm also curious about that whole situation too. What about that little love triangle situation? Well, it seems like Peyton might be potentially going out with that lawyer dude. I'm blanking on his name right now. Because even Liv kind of in her mind is like, oh, what should I do? Because like Peyton was like, what should I do about Ravi? And she's like, oh, you should probably get back together with him. And it's just like no answer to that. So I'm curious, like, what's going to happen with that. Obviously, you can see something a little bit between Blaine and Baton. Obviously, things are awkward. I mean, him lying about the cure and everything and actually remembering everything. So there is just so much in that whole situation. So, maybe potentially Ravi and Baton get back together. I don't know. Maybe Blaine and Baton. I don't know. So I'm curious to see what happens with Blaine's story this season, and obviously with his dad returning, which the beginning kind of spoils it, but his dad's in the opening and it's like prophet. I was like, wait, what? What is that all about? And it seems like he's going to be starting his own thing too. I love that he killed that guy, Blaine's second in command. I mean, he bashed him in the head, so I don't know if he's dead, but bashing him in the head, and it ends up and I love that the moment he does it, hammer time, and I was like, what? But basically, he's kind of crazy. Basically, he's like, oh, God speaks to me. He's like, oh, Angus, God told you to form an army. So I'm sure he's going to create kind of like a church of zombies, kind of like probably going to make like a religious group of zombies, probably something like that. Then you have the dead enders. Like you can tell all the ingredients for an all-out war between humans and zombies are there, but obviously you have Fillmore Graves trying to keep the peace, but Seattle's like in the epicenter of something that's the world has never seen before, and I'm so interested to see how it all plays out. You even have Major kind of going back to his original job, because the Chase is like, oh, I need you to be a counselor. Really, it was more so like, okay, I need you to pick people because we need more recruits, because they can't really make more zombies because there's not enough brains to satisfy all the zombies. There's already to the point that they have to limit the rations. Like there aren't enough brains to go around, so they have to manufacture all the tubes, because even some of the kids were like, yeah, the tubes aren't that good because there's not enough brains. Even hearing some of the kids be like, yeah, I know some people who are selling themselves just to get more tubes. And it's like, whoa, man, that's the world we live in now with this whole iZombie situation. Like things are actually like I said, I love that it is kind of like, oh man, the world is still intact, but it's still a very apocalyptic type of situation. Like I said, in one moment, all of humanity got flipped upside down, so it's just kind of an interesting thing. But now like Major's in control, like these two kids, that boy and that girl like are the people he chose, and it's like now you're gonna like work under him, and like Major's gonna teach them everything, which is definitely going to be interesting. I mean, because this whole counseling thing didn't work out the best for Major, because he lost people. And that's kind of what started him on his crusade back in season 1. So I'm sure he's going to try his hardest to protect them and kind of make sure that they're prepared for this. But I'm very interested to see that direction and what that all takes. I'm also curious, where does Major stand now? There's that whole because let's not forget last season there's a whole chaos killer situation. Well, season 2/3, the whole chaos killer situation, but now it's like, oh yeah, there's actually more to it and everything. So I don't know if that's something he's still gonna have to deal with or not. It seems like it won't necessarily be the case, but we'll just have to see. Like I said, I am super excited to see what they've got planned for this season. Things are, you can just tell they're just going to get better and better with everything they've already set up in this first episode. It definitely got me super excited for the next episode as well as the rest of the season. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.